Well, hey guys, how's it going? Today I went to start up my Deuce and a half. I haven't started it up in 3 or 4 weeks, and of course it wouldn't fire. So first thing I did was check the little fuel petcock there. I opened that up to be sure, and I got a good geyser of fuel out of that. So the next thing I did was go down here and pull off the fuel shutoff cover off the hydraulic head, and sure enough, the fuel throttle shaft was in the 6 o'clock position, and I could move it back to the 4 o'clock position, but it would stick there. So I cranked it over a couple times and tried to fool with it, and eventually I got it to break loose, and I could move it all the way over to the 8 o'clock position and to the 3 o'clock position, but still I had no starting. I put a remote starter on it and cranked it as I moved the throttle shaft back and forth, but still nothing happening. So my next step was to pull the hydraulic head. But before I do that, I'm going to change the fuel filters. It would be foolish to not change the fuel filters before I pull the hydraulic head and turn out that it's something stupid like a fuel filter. Even though I got a good geyser of fuel out of the petcock there, I'm going to go ahead and change those and try it. I really don't think that has anything to do with it, but again, like I said, it would be foolish to pull this thing apart and then find out later it was just a fuel filter issue. So I'm going to do that and try to crank it again, and I'll be back. All right, guys, I'm back. I've replaced all 3 fuel filters. The one up front there under this front fender. I filled them all up with diesel fuel before I started. I put them in, I turned on the fuel pump, and of course I bled the air out there with the petcock until I got a good geyser coming out of there again. And I cranked and cranked and cranked and cranked and moved the throttle fuel control lever back and forth, and still no joy. So I'm going to cut the safety wire, take off the backing plate there, and take out the fuel shaft and see what I can see with that. So I'll keep you posted. Well, I'm back. I got the bridge plate and the throttle control lever out. It was relatively free, but could use a little work. So I'm going to try to pull the hydraulic head off. I disconnected the injector lines at all the injectors, and I spun the engine over 1,000,000 times trying to get the red mark to line up. Basically, there is no red mark on this hydraulic head. I can't see it. I've turned the engine over dozens and dozens of times. So then I even took the little front plate off right here, hoping to get that timing mark at least visible so that I could be in the neighborhood and maybe I could spot the red mark on the hydraulic head. But lo and behold, there's no white mark on that timing wheel either. So I'm not sure how I'm going to get this hydraulic head off. So I've got to drop back and punt here to determine how to get that thing off with no timing marks. Well, I got a few ideas for some folks on the Facebook forums, and also from Garrett of Tactical Repair. Talked to him and he gave me some pointers too. I don't have a red tooth, but I was told that the tooth has got a scribe in it, so I looked for that. There is no pointer down in here at all. No pointer at all. No line, no pointer. Also, I talked to another guy, John English, and he told me to turn the damper to where the timing mark was on the pointer, and I would be in the vicinity of where the scribe mark was, or I'd be 1 revolution out. So I tried to do that. You won't believe on this engine, there's no pointer on the damper. So at least I got the timing mark in view, and the first time there was no scribe tooth on the hydraulic head. So I turned it another revolution, got the timing mark in sight, and I could see the tooth with the scribe mark on it. So I wiggled back and forth on the rotation of the engine and got the scribed tooth in the proper position. So I think I'm going to be okay there, and I'm now taking off my injector lines. That's always fun, but that's where I'm at right now, and hopefully those tips got me in the vicinity that I'll be able to get this hydraulic head off and see what's exactly going on. Well, guys, you see here I got the hydraulic head out successfully. I found that the little scribe mark, I'll point to it right here, right there. It's got the little, just a little scribe in it. The white I put on there from a welding pin just so I could see it a little better once I discovered it. But that's what I had to look for, was just that little scribe mark. As you can see, there's no color on there. There's no nothing. So it was difficult for me to find. But thanks to the advice from a couple of you guys, like I said earlier, I was able to locate it. And sure enough, the button is off the bottom. And there it is down in the bottom. So I found my problem. So that's a good thing. So I'm going to order some parts here. I'll replace those O-rings and get to work on it. And I'll clean up everything so that I can see the pointers. I'll probably paint some Gliptol or something on this tooth so that I'll be able to look at it in the future and maybe get it off a little easier. So this is where I am so far, guys. I got my lines over here soaking in some PB Blaster so that these things will spin a little easier on the lines. I was afraid I was going to twist one of them off, but it didn't twist. But I soaked them good, and I'm going to clean them all up good and probably paint them before I put them back on. But anyway, success. I'm pleased. I did take the wheel off here, tire and wheel, so that I have a little better access to get through the opening here. I've got the Waterloo power steering kit, so I've got a little bit of room. You can see up in there, that's where I've been working from. It's a tight fit, but it can be done. And anyway, as I get some more progress done, I'll keep you guys posted. Thanks. Well, I got the hydraulic head all out. Got my new O-rings here from Big Mike. Got those put on. The O-ring here on the throttle shaft. And got that all freed up. Everything's spinning around like it should on that. All free. Got the little O-ring there. The other two O-rings there. I painted my tooth red with some Gliptol so I could see it if I have to take it out again. I also dimpled the shield right there and put a little red dot on there just in case. Painted up the hydraulic head, cleaned it all up, painted it up, getting ready to put it back in. And I painted up my injector lines, freed up all of those guys nice and easy so they'll go back in with no big deal. Had to spray a bunch of PB Blast on them and work them and clean them and brake cleaner, and finally got them all freed up so that they're good and free. Cleaned up the threads well inside here. Tried to put on the new boots. They just wouldn't go over these injector bolts. I just couldn't get them over it. I heated them, I lubricated them. I know they're made to go on before these are put on. So these aren't in terrible shape, so I'm just going to go back with those guys. I know they really don't do a whole lot, but I like them to look better. Can't do it. Not going to fight it anymore. So anyway, like I said, I painted up all the injector lines. This is one set, the other set's next to the truck. But anyway, I'm going to put this guy in and start reassembling, and we'll see how it goes, and I'll keep you guys posted. Okay guys, appears that I've got a little problem here with the hydraulic head still. I installed it and I noticed that the throttle shaft wouldn't spin like it should. So I pulled it back out and realized that this throttle plate or metering block doesn't move freely at all. And I've been told that it should slide up and down on that plunger shaft pretty easily. So I'm assuming that the gunk that locked up my throttle shaft and knocked the button off the bottom has also gummed up the plunger and locked that metering block up. So I'm going to try to spray some penetrating oil, some Croil, a PB Blast or something in there, get that shaft moving and get that metering block moving up and down along those holes that are in that shaft. So hopefully I can do that and be successful. I'll keep you posted. Also, the shaft here doesn't turn, I mean, it turns very stiffly, so that further indicates that it's probably gummed up on that metering block. So let me work on that and I'll be back. Okay guys, after quite a bit of lubricating, penetrating oil and PB Blast and whatnot, I got the metering plate, throttle plate moving freely in here. I don't know if you can see it. I need some more light. See down in there. See, it's moving up and down freely. And the gear is spinning freely. Before it was extremely tight. Plunger would only go in a little bit. So with some penetrating oil, I'm going to let it soak probably overnight some more and keep it moving. But I actually had to put it in a bearing press and push down on the plunger and then flip it over and push up on the plunger and push down on the plunger and up on the plunger with a bearing press. I was only using my hand to pump it, so I wasn't putting much pressure on it. But I sprayed it and turned this with a screwdriver to free it up, and finally it just started turning and moving. So I'm going to continue to work it and spray penetrating oil, PB Blast, whatever in here, and be sure that it's moving good. You can see that metering plate right in there where it should be and moving up and down freely. So when I put the throttle shaft in there, it should move it. That was my key. When I put the throttle shaft in there, I couldn't turn the throttle shaft, and I knew that could not be right. So when I pulled out the hydraulic head, I noticed this was very stiff and spinning, but I didn't know how tight it should be. But this is what it should be normally, and that throttle shaft should be the metering block, throttle shaft, whatever you want to call it, should move just loosely on there. There are holes in that shaft that the metering block covers up, and that controls the amount of fuel you get. So anyway, we'll play with this some more tonight and be sure it's freed up, and tomorrow I'll clean it up and put it back in and continue along the process. Maybe a little better shot of it there. Yeah, you can see how easily that moves. So that's the way it should be. Great. Thanks. See ya. Okay guys, I'm getting ready to install the hydraulic head again after I freed up the metering plate. So let's see if we can get this guy down in here. Be sure I got the gear lined up here with my marks. Yep. Not the easiest thing to get access to here. I got it down in there. Now I'm going to go look underneath and see if my mark lines up with the marker. You don't want that thing to be off at all. And nope, it moved, so I got to pull it out and line that gear up again. Actually turned quite a bit. Let's see what we got this time. Nope, it moved one tooth off this time. Well, I guess that's a result of having this gear so loose now. Before, when I put it in, the gear was pretty stiff and it didn't move when I put it in. So now that it's loose, like it should be, it's a little more critical getting it in there in the right place. There we go. Let's check that. Yep, that did it. So not too bad that time. Okay, I got that in there. You can see where I've got the tooth lined up. See if I can zoom in on that a little bit. Yep, see it's lined up. I've got the throttle linkage pulled back and wired up out of the way, but see it's just in front of the marker a little bit. That's where it's supposed to be. So I'll tighten that guy up, start putting the throttle plate in, throttle shaft I mean, and move along from there. Okay, I've got the throttle shaft in, and it should move freely. See if I can do this with one hand. That little linkage is in the way. Which I haven't gotten in there good yet. Pull that out of the way. And that should move easily, to about the 7 o'clock position and over to about the 4 o'clock position. And you see it just kind of falls in. I've only got one screw in the bridge plate there just to show you that it moves. I'm going to try to fight this linkage back in there, put the Jesus clip on there, and then I'll put the bridge plate on and safety wire it. But that's the way it should move freely like that. Now this has got a little spring return in it, so it should take it back to about the 6 o'clock position every time, which is a stop. So let me get the linkage in there, the bridge plate on, I'll try to start safety wiring it and then I'll be back. Well, the safety wire is on there. I know to all you safety wire purists that had safety wire training in the military and whatnot, it's not done correctly. I know I'm on the wrong side of the right-hand bolt, but considering the room I had to work and there's not any rotational torque on those little screws, it's gonna do the job. It's gonna keep them from backing out. That's all that's important there. But it is important to have them on there. And you see I got the little Jesus clip in the linkage there. That was a little bit of a hassle, but it's on there. So I'll continue now with putting the injector lines on and move along. Well, after a little bit of trouble, I got the back 3 injectors back on. It's very important, like I mentioned, to free up those nuts on the injector lines so that you know that you're getting ready to cross thread something and it's not tight. So I got the first 2 in, and naturally the back one is always the toughest one to get to. It just wouldn't start, and I knew that it had to be on an angle because these things are under a little bit of a tension. So I had to disconnect the hold down, I call them tabs, brackets, whatever you want, and disconnect that line from the other 2 and manipulate it around a little bit so that it lined up and it went right in. I got it started, then I put the line back into those holders and tightened them down. Of course, there's some weird sizes. I think a 5/16 nut on the back of a bolt with a 7/16 head, so it's kind of unusual, but got those off and moved the line around, got it perfectly aligned, and because I'd freed up those nuts from the lines using penetrating oil, once I got it lined up, it spun right in. You certainly don't want to cross thread any of your hydraulic head threads there. That's an expensive piece, so you'd be screwed badly there. So now that I got that one on, and you want to put those on first because you would never be able to get to the back nut there once you put the other 2 lines on. So you put the back 3 on first, and then you wrestle with the front 3. So I'm going to get to that. All right, I'm back. I got the front 3 fuel injector lines on, hooked up on the hydraulic head and back to the fuel injectors. Just like on the back, I had to disconnect the brackets and keepers there, holding them to spin them around to take the tension off of the lines on the hydraulic head. It's very important to put those back on. They keep the lines from vibrating, and basically they could snap under metal fatigue. So it's important to keep them back on there roughly in the same place. A lot of people take them off, think they're not necessary, but they really do belong on there. So try to keep those guys on there. I just put the shutoff cover back on. I still need to connect the one line there over to the left of the hydraulic head from the fuel density compensator, which has been bypassed, but that line still needs to be connected on there. Once I get that on, and of course you see back on the top left corner of the hydraulic head, I'm missing one nut. I dropped the keeper and it shattered. So I'm waiting on another keeper from Big Mike. That should be here tomorrow. Once I get that and the nut on there, I'll torque those down and I'll put that line back on from the fuel density compensator. That's why I haven't put it on, because once that line's on, it covers that nut up. So I'll get that back on there and then we'll fire this puppy up. I'm gonna also have something ready by the intake stack to shut the air off in case I get a runaway for some reason. I don't anticipate it, but I'd rather be prepared for it than not. So everything seems to be back together except for, like I said, that nut and that line. We'll get back on that tomorrow and we'll fire it up and hopefully everything works. One thing I forgot to mention, 2 tools that are very handy on putting the lines back on the hydraulic head are an 11/16 stubby wrench and an 11/16 flare nut crow's foot. Those things are invaluable for getting in and around on the hydraulic head. I'm not sure how I would have done it without those 2 pieces of equipment there. They're cheap pieces. I mean, these are just Harbor Freight things that I bought just for this. So they worked fine for this. So just a little tip, those two things may be needed in your arsenal if you attempt to do a hydraulic head repair. All right, I got all my pieces back on, got all my nuts back on the hydraulic head, and torqued those down, put that fuel line back on, tighten that up. So I'm ready to fire this puppy up, and we'll see what's going on. Let me go push the start button and see what happens. We're in the middle of the tropical storm Ophelia here, so we'll see how this goes. Well, don't have any leaks. Got a little surging here at idle. I think it's probably due to some air in the line. Yeah, that settled out the surging. I'll probably need to run it pretty hard on the road here and get it cleared out better. So we'll see how it all goes once I get it back on the road. One last thing here on this repair. Another tip I got from Garrett of Tactical Repair. Since this problem was probably caused by bad fuel, varnishing, or dirt, gunk, whatever you want to call it, he runs this Power Service Clear diesel in his tanks, and he also runs this Howes diesel treatment in the tank. This is more of a lubrication and anti-gel, and this is a cleaner with something they call Petrofresh, which is supposed to be good stuff. But I just put this in my Deuce. I put it in my diesel generator. I put it in my tractor. So hopefully I don't have any more problems like this hydraulic head locking up on me. So just think about buying that stuff. I got this stuff from Tractor Supply. It's pretty expensive stuff, but it's cheaper than an engine. So thanks for watching, guys. Hit like and subscribe if you would, please. Thanks. Bye.